Hello, Namaskar. Welcome you to the SAAR Analysis. I am Chaman Nayak and here's my take. We all know that world's biggest geopolitical conflicts are now deciding the price of our grocery bills, our fuels, even our country's economic future. No, this isn't just about inflation, it's about power because while much of the world is still struggling with persistent price pressures, India's finance ministry now says inflation is expected to remain contained. But here's the question that matters: has India truly insulated its economy, or it is simply benefiting from temporary geopolitical pause? Let's dig it out. Well, India's latest monthly report project that inflation will remain under control, supported by easing commodity prices, government supply interventions, adequate food buffer stocks, and recent declining in the tension of West Asia. Well, the report also points to improving export prospects through upcoming free trade agreement, sustained investment in infrastructure, manufacturing, and reduce external deficit risk. Yes, it carries equally important warning also. One renewed geopolitical crisis could change almost everything. Now, here's what evidence speaks about. India's inflation is no longer driven only by the domestic demand, it is increasingly determined by the global geopolitics. Well, the conflict in the Middle East can raise the oil prices overnight, the freight costs can push up the food prices, and the food inflation eventually reaches millions of Indian households. Well, in today's economy, geopolitical stability has become an economic asset. Now the question arises, why is this important? Well, because the next decade will not be defined only by the GDP growth or inflation, it will be decided by economic resilience. Well, the finance ministry warns that renewed conflict in the West Asia disruptions in strategic shipping routes, climate driven agricultural shocks, and global trade uncertainty. Well, for India, the stakes are even higher. The country continues to depend heavily on imported energy while simultaneously positioning itself as a global manufacturing and investment destination. Well, that means every geopolitical disruption influences inflation. Every geopolitical disruptions influence the investment flows, currency stability, export competitiveness, and most importantly, it affects the consumer confidence. Well, we all know that world has entered an era where economic security and the national security are becoming the same conversation. Now, here's my take: contained inflation should never be mistaken for the permanent stability. Well, the real test is whether India can build an economy that remains resilient even when the oil spikes, the shipping lanes disrupted, and geopolitical tensions return. Well, that requires stronger domestic manufacturing, diversified energy partnership, smarter trade agreement, and most importantly, strategic investment in critical infrastructure. We all know because in the emerging global order, the strongest economies won't be those that avoid the crisis. They are the ones that can absorb it without losing momentum. Well, that's all from today's analysis. I will be back with another episode. Till then, thank you for watching this.